Well, good afternoon and thanks for tuning in to Kalkine TV. James Preston with you, and this is the Stocks in Action show. Let's take a glimpse through developments across equity and commodity markets and subsequently stocks under the spotlight today amid overall market volatility. Let's first start with the ASX 200 performance for today, or perhaps more appropriately, non-performance. Amid virus woes, the ASX 200 is resembling a dog's breakfast. E-commerce players, supermarket and retail and some charged up IT stocks are tracking positively enough, but the likes of the real estate and industrial sector, along with energy, materials and commodities, are proving to be a heavy burden. On the 28th of June 2021, ASX indices traded in a flat to negative zone, with new lockdown restrictions imposed across Australia due to COVID-19. The bottom performing stocks in this index are Unibail, Rodamco, Restwheel, down 4.61%, and Growth Point Properties Australia down 4.48%. Notably, the index has lost 1.25% for the last 5 days, but sits 2.1% below its 52-week high. Looking at the sectoral charter, 9 of 11 sectors are lower today, along with the S&P ASX 200 index. Information technology is the best performing sector, gaining 0.66% and 0.25% for the past 5 days overall. Moving on, let's quickly glance through some significant details about the US market charter. Global stock markets traded lower on Monday, though US stocks made their new highs. On Wall Street, the Dow Jones fell 0.44%, while the S&P 500 gained 0.23%. The Nasdaq Composite added 0.98%. Travel and leisure stocks took a straight blow, while big tech companies such as Facebook, Apple, Amazon.com and Nvidia were among the top gainers in the S&P 500 and the Nasdaq. Meanwhile, the US Treasury yields eased as investors are keeping an eye on the release of June 2021 employment data later this week to gauge the trajectory of the economic recovery. The benchmark 10-year yield was last down 5.4 basis points at 1.4816%. On the other hand, the US dollar index edged a little higher by 0.05% on lighter volumes, as many investors sat on the sidelines ahead of Friday's US non-farm payrolls data, which would be crucial in determining the path of the Fed's monetary policy. The Aussie dollar traded lower as the surge in the Delta variant cases forced lockdowns and stringent restrictions across the country, hurting investor sentiment. Let's now move across to the commodities space, and on Monday, gold traded sideways as investors were caught between expectations of an early interest rate hike by the Fed and fears of a surge in the highly contagious Delta variant of the coronavirus. The US gold futures closed the session 0.2% up. Also, copper prices fell as slowing profit growth in industrial firms in China, low premiums and rising inventories snapped industrial metals demand. The benchmark 3-month copper on the London Metal Exchange also fell by 0.2%. The global commodities market also witnessed a rise in iron ore prices on Monday due to a decline in portside stocks in China, the world's leading iron ore importer. Imported iron ore stockpiles at the Chinese ports tumbled for the 4th straight week as of Friday, reaching their lowest since October 2020. However, preliminary sales data from the leading exporter, Australia, suggested that iron ore exports to China have increased by 20% in May despite the country's efforts to reduce dependency on Australia's exports. Earlier in the month, the prices of iron ore tumbled after China's top economic planning agency investigated the malicious speculation in the iron ore market. Meanwhile, crude oil prices tumbled nearly 2% on Monday after hitting 3-year highs due to a spike in COVID-19 cases in Europe and also Asia ahead of OPEC's meeting. Indonesia reported a high number of coronavirus cases, Malaysia decided to extend a lockdown, and Thailand put in place new COVID-19 restrictions. Australia, of course, also reported a record number of cases on Sunday, leading to lockdowns in several of its major cities. In addition, the forthcoming OPEC meeting also influenced crude oil prices on Monday. The OPEC meeting is scheduled for Thursday, and included on the agenda will be the crude oil output for August. Iran and the US, meanwhile, were anticipated to restart their indirect talks on the revival of the 2015 nuclear deal, which is expected to further add 1 million barrels per day of supply into the market. Well, on that note, it's time for a very short break, but stay tuned as I'll be back with you in just a moment to discuss some more of the buzzing stocks of the day right here on Kalkine TV.
Tune in to stay updated while on the move.
We will tell you where the crypto craze has reached,
Where the property market is headed next.
what the world is doing to become more environmentally friendly.
Apart from tracking the daily market charter.
Be on top of the latest news and announcements
With Kalkine TV.
Welcome back, James Preston with you live from Kalkine TV studios in Sydney, and you're watching the Stocks in Action program. While we've discussed US market and commodity space developments, let's now take a look at the stocks under the spotlight for today. Starting with the first piece of news, and shares of Australian healthcare firm PKS Holdings were up in the morning on the successful renewal of key contracts and securing of new clients in Australia and also internationally. Major contract renewals for PKS data products include Healthscope, St Vincent's Private, Uniting Care, St John of God and Cabrini, as well as state health departments of New South Wales, Victoria, South Australia, the Northern Territory and Tasmania, and also several major health services in Queensland. Renewals for PK's decision support platform include Australian Clinical Laboratories, the Asian Pacific Healthcare Group and also Lancet. Meanwhile, strong pipeline development moving into the next financial year includes a recent agreement with the Ministry of Health in Singapore to initiate a trial of data products PICQ and RISQ ahead of potential national rollout in all public and private hospitals across Singapore. Moving on to the next piece of news, and shares of body scanning app maker Advanced Human Imaging were up today after the company announced it had signed a term sheet with Singapore-based BizBaz to integrate AHI's complete scan technology into the BizBaz application. Notably, AHI's complete scan technology is used to recognise an individual's health, well-being and also chronic disease risk. Under the terms, BizBaz will target 100,000 active users on the BizBaz platform within the first 12 months. It's interesting to note that the stock has posted its biggest intraday percentage gain since the 18th of June 2021 on the back of this announcement. Shifting gears, and the ASX-listed resource company Strike Resources remains in the spotlight, with the company providing an update in relation to the development of its Paulsens East iron ore mine in Western Australia. After an extensive process of evaluation of submissions from multiple parties, Strike has entered into early contractor involvement service agreements with the preferred contractors to provide drill and blast, mining, crushing and screening services, in addition to civil works for Paulsens East. As per the release, Dynamic Drill and Blast has been selected for the provision of drill and blast services. And also, Lucas Total Contract Solutions has been selected for the provision of mining, crushing and screening services. Lucas will be undertaking the civil works as well that are required for Paulsens East. The establishment of the Mining Operations Centre and site works for the mining village will be undertaken by Lucas. Strike is currently working with both the parties to finalise the detailed scope of services, schedules and formal contractual terms of the engagement. The next stock under the investors' radar comes courtesy of the energy space. Shares of Perth-based oil and gas company Brookside Energy were trading up by more than 13% in the morning after it shared that US major ExxonMobil Corporation confirmed its participation as a non-operated working interest partner in the dual DSU. The dual drilling space unit is situated in Brookside's Swish area of interest in the Anadarko Basin. As per the company release, ExxonMobil, through its subsidiary XTO Energy Incorporated, will be taking up 4.5% of its working interest in dual DSU, while US-based Citation Oil and Gas Corporation will be taking 2.3% of the working interest. A further 5.7% has been obtained by a combination of private equity and smaller private oil and gas firms. Well, on that note, it's time for another very short break on Kalkine TV, but stick with us as I'll be back with you in just a moment for more stocks that are under the spotlight.
Crypto talk by Kalkine. The crypto market has been red hot given the Bitcoin rally since the past year. And now the most famous cryptocurrency has got competitors, Dogecoin and Ethereum. If the crypto market excites you, tune in with me, Sage, to know the latest developments about the existing digital currencies and the new ones that are joining the race. I'll help you understand the opportunities and the risks the crypto market has in store for you. For all the digital currency related developments, continue watching Crypto Talk by Kalkine.
Thanks for your company. James Preston with you live from Kalkine Studios in Sydney, and this is the Stocks in Action show. Let's now put the focus squarely on medical sciences company Bard1 Life Sciences Limited. Shares of Bard1 were trading up after it announced that previously reported ovarian cancer test results from the 25th of June 2021 had now been published in the international peer-reviewed journal Genes. The study data published in Genes was previously shared by the company as positive results from its OC-CA125 and OC-R001 studies in ovarian cancer were completed. These studies were done at the University of Geneva, and the Bard1 ovarian cancer test is a blood test in development for early detection of ovarian cancer in high-risk women. The company is exploring several approaches for developing an accurate and reliable blood test for earlier detection of ovarian cancer, utilising its proprietary technologies. Additionally, the company is developing an approach that detects a pan-cancer marker. Shifting gears, and shares of Australian restaurant operator Collins Foods were trading up in the morning over the news of its rise in revenue and profit. Collins Foods reported revenue and profit growth for the 2021 fiscal year on the back of a solid performance by KFC Australia. Revenue increased 12.4% for the 12 months ending May 2, 2021, while net profit after tax rose by 5.4%. The revenue growth was largely driven by, quote, exceptional same-store sales growth in KFC Australia. KFC Europe also contributed to the revenue and underlying EBITDA. By the end of the period, 46 restaurants were in operation, with 29 restaurants in the Netherlands and 17 in Germany. All right then, that's all for now. Hope you enjoyed the program. Stay tuned with Kalkine TV for more live market updates. We'll be back with more news on markets, the economy and diverse themes and sectors. I'm James Preston for Kalkine TV.